Eric!
Close your eyes and imagine yourselves being locked in a room with no windows or small windows, not having no light or little light coming in. Just white walls. A room so small you can stretch out your arms and touch the walls. Being deprived from any human contact and leaving your room only for 1 hour a day. Well, I can tell you firsthand, I experienced that exact feeling from a twisted perspective from a prison policy that ultimately does more harm than the so-called rehabilitation. That is the California Department of Rehabilitation and Solitary Confinement, also known as CDCR. Solitary confinement started as a way of punishing inmates, according to Garcia Maria in the Restrictive Housing Unit, published 2016. Solitary confinement has been around since the early 19th century. It sought to serve many purposes, including reformation, punishment, protection, and behavior modification, and prison management. Since then, it has been cruel and unusual punishment for an inmate to be placed in solitary for a long period of time. You should care about this because no human should be subjected to this type of treatment or unusual punishment in whatever state the individual is in, including the jail systems. I'm credible to give this talk about this as a person that's been impacted in solitary confinement. I have firsthand experience of being degraded and the mental abuse that caused me to become a different person after the effects of solitary confinement. In the next few minutes, I want to persuade you. You could consider that solitary confinement is inhumane and a way of torture for a person that's in the prison systems. First, I'll talk about why solitary confinement is bad for it to be placed in. Then I will discuss why it's still taking place in prisons. Finally, I will help to start the process in finding ways to help inmates under these conditions. Let's begin by what are the effects of harms that come to a human being placed in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is harmful for an individual because they're being deprived from human contact, contact visits, and the use of phones, or socialization with anybody. In time, an inmate's mental stability will be damaged by being isolated. Living under these conditions has shown that it does cause more damage to a human brain in the long run. And Daniel Purfort Journal, evaluating intervening in the trauma of solitary confinement, he states that solitary confinement is inhumane for a human placed in prison solitary confinement because it develops PTSD, social death. A prisoner is excluded, humiliated, dominated to the point of becoming dead to society. And studies show placed in solitary confinement for a long period of time causes the brain hippocampus to not work as well as it should. The brain hippocampus is a complex brain structure embedded deep in the temporal lobe. As you see right here. Oh damn. As you see right here. It's a major role in the learning process and memory. Human connection is so important for us because it gives us the sense of belonging by interacting with others. With that taken away from a person, someone can become antisocial and have a hard time adapting to around people when inmates are put in isolation for a long time. The brain solitude by Capella Federica, the solitary confinement withholds basic human needs as far as human contact. It affects the brain in so many ways. Human needs need human interaction. She also mentions being placed in solitary confinement for a long period, the brain deteriorates. The social deprivation can impart within even a brief part-time in solitary confinement. According to Tiana Harris in Prison Policy Initiated State by Robert King, he spent 29 years in solitary confinement and was released in 2001. King mentions he lost his interest in communication and the experience of emotional numbness that led to a loss of basic skills. Even after his release, he still struggles with the simple things, including the sense of direction. A study in solitary confinement prisons in North Carolina, published in October 4, 2009, found that prisoners in solitary confinement causes premature death, as you see right here. Before solitary confinement, the numbers are down. After solitary confinement, the numbers are up. Now that you know the effects of solitary confinement can do to a person, let's find out why solitary confinement is still taking place. The government is waiting for CDCR to make the changes to solitary confinement policies, but there's multiple reasons why prisons across the nation keep this practice. The government is aware of the situation about solitary confinement, but is allowing CDCR to take the initiative in fixing the issues, but nothing is being done by the government in pushing the CDCR and making better policies for the prison inmates. In fact, as of today, there is no federal law that outlaws solitary confinement for those 122,000 inmates that are impacted throughout the nation. On a societal level, the CDCR believes inmates should be confined for the safety of prisoners and institutions. According to the aforementioned journal, Correction Administration focuses on maintaining prison order by removing inmates who pose a threat to the order of the institution. Even though CDCR still fails to see that solitary confinement is not doing anything in the rehabilitation for inmates, instead it does more harm to an individual. My experience of solitary confinement, of what I know, is that and seen from others in solitary confinement, it doesn't help because if inmates become angry and violent in cages, just as animals get agitated in cages, how can solitary confinement work if there's no programs to help rehabilitate an inmate if they're being confined? Individuals in our society have a lot of implicit bias prejudice that attach to incarcerated individuals, which prevents them from advocating on their behalf. And don't show empathy for people incarcerated, but as individuals, we should recognize that this could be someone's family member or a friend that's being put in predicaments that are inhumane to people. I have just explained to you the root causes of why solitary confinement are still taking place. Now let's look at the principal solution and working on these inhumane actions. Finally, advocates are pushing legislators to make changes in the CDCR concerning solitary confinement. At the governmental level, in finding solutions about solitary confinement, Newman is aware of the situation that's going on in prison. He had vetoed an Assembly Bill 2632 in 2022 concerning solitary confinement. According to Paul Jr. in the Sacramento Bee, he mentions the bill was overly broad, but they call the practice of solitary confinement a reform, and directed CDCR to find ways to restrict the use of solitary confinement. But as of now, the government is pushing CDCR to make those changes, but no solutions have been met. We need to push our governments to make those changes by calling our representatives to get our voices heard. This is what people are currently working on, and it's called the Assembly Bill 280, the California Mandela Act. But we need more support. So society needs to see that it's a major problem with the treatment of individuals for a long period of this time. And this solution, which bans solitary confinement for specific population, including individuals with mental health, physical, and developmental disabilities, pregnant people, people under 26 and over 59 years old. Sets limits for confinement to no more than 15 consecutive days or 20 days, so a total of 60-day period. Requires facilities to keep clear records on the use of solitary confinement in order to provide public transparency. Defines segregated confinement in California law. There are steps being taken to support individuals that are impacted by this. On an individual basis, I'm going to pass out a letter of support at the end of my speech. We can pay attention to the ballots when it's time to vote and do our research first before being biased in certain situations, because all human beings deserve to get treated like humans. Vote to make a difference for the families that are seeing their loved ones being put to these conditions. Today I gave you an insight in what conditions inmates are placed during solitary confinement and present you a solution and what you can do. First, I talked about why solitary confinement bad for individuals to be placed in. Then I discussed why is this still taking place in the prisons. Finally, I talked about how we can start the process in finding ways to help inmates under these conditions. I hope that you consider and come to realize that solitary confinement is a way of torture for individuals to be placed in. Now, do you consider solitary confinement inhumane torture? Then let's make a stand and stop the injustice and treat people of all colors wrongly and support AB 280. I consider myself lucky that I survived solitary confinement and can stand in front of you all to speak about it. But even as one of the lucky ones, there are still issues from my time in solitary confinement that I'm still struggling with, to deal with. But there are still hundreds of people sitting alone in cells, losing their minds slowly. And we have the obligation to help these people, individuals, for the sake of our humanity.